At a time when a lot of people are freaking out about this Russian military buildup along the Ukrainian border, let me ask an impolitic question. Does Ukraine belong in Russia's sphere of influence? Now, if you start with that question, it puts a whole new spin on what's happening in this hotspot that we're told is the new line in the sand against Russia. Look, I am no fan of Vladimir Putin. He's an autocrat. He's a kleptocrat. But it's not like Ukraine is the same as Poland or Bulgaria or any of the other former Warsaw Pact states. Ukraine was actually part of the Soviet Union. Arguably, it's only a separate country because Stalin wanted an extra seat at the UN. Of course, Ukraine had a bitter history with the Soviet Union, but it's only been separated from Russia for the last 30-odd years. I think they deserve to determine their own destiny. Unfortunately, I don't have any tank divisions, so what I say doesn't matter. So I understand why Putin is so adamant that Ukraine never joined NATO, even as it seems that the Biden administration is open to the idea. NATO exists to contain Russia. Of course, they don't want the breadbasket of the old Soviet Union to join the organization. Again, I'm not at all sympathetic to the Russian government, but it seems like overreach to assume that we here in the United States can dictate whether Ukraine remains independent. Again, don't get me wrong. I love it if we could just tell Russia to back off like we did when the wall fell. But we now have no more ability to stop a Russian takeover of Ukraine than we could stop the Russian takeover of Crimea 8 years ago. Unless we want to start a nuclear war, and we don't, then Russia's going to do whatever it wants, the same way our government does pretty much whatever it wants in Central America. Monroe Doctrine, meet Putin Doctrine. But there are two other reasons why I expect the current Ukrainian tensions won't turn into a hot war, at least not a hot war between NATO and Russia. One is that Ukraine, as it now stands, is basically a failed state propped up by the International Monetary Fund. Then there's reason number two. Russia's a giant petrostate with Germany as its principal client. That means Germany can't really afford to get too hostile, or else they'll have a severe energy shortage. That means the most important country in Europe may side with its old foe, Russia. Now, it's an understatement to say that former President Trump created divisions in NATO that have rendered it dysfunctional. But that's nothing compared to Germany's reliance on Russian oil and gas. Plus, the Germans have been leading the world in decommissioning nuclear plants. They also are trying to close all of their 83 coal plants. I guess they didn't think too far ahead because that leaves Germany totally at the mercy of Russia's natural gas pipelines. With these closures, Russia could end up providing half of Germany's energy in the form of natural gas. Obviously, that gets cut off immediately if the Germans actually send troops to Ukraine. Historically, not a great move for them anyway. Which brings us back to who owns Ukraine. In a just world, obviously, it belongs to Ukrainians. What the heck? They live there. They have shedded blood, sweat, tears, and more blood trying to be independent. But when we're talking in terms of geopolitics, small countries get pushed around by regional superpowers. Morality doesn't come into it. If you're the Germans, you might agree to a deal where Russia doesn't invade and NATO commits not to expand into Ukraine. Maybe that's enough for Putin. Maybe it's not, and he wants to install a whole new loyal puppet regime. He can do that. But no matter what Russia does, nobody in Western Europe seems to want a war, even if the United States might like one. Therefore, you know what we have to do? We have to figure out this is the first big geopolitical test of the Biden administration and start thinking about stocks within that context. To me, it's twofold. If you had a worst-case situation, like when Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990, you had multiple weeks where oil prices exploded higher. Russia also a petrostate, and there are plenty of oil stocks that I think are worth owning right now. Second, you can buy the consumer staples or the drug companies. We did some of that for the Charitable Trust today, because they won't be hurt even if the Ukraine situation spirals out of control. And you can get the stocks at a discount because the futures are dragging down everything. And there you can think Procter & Gamble. J&J reports tomorrow, but it'll be good. Third, you can buy a defense contractor like Raytheon Technologies, reports tomorrow, or Lockheed Martin. Go-to names whenever you read a story about our government sending Ukraine lethal aid. All-time great euphemism, isn't it? I wish I could tell you to buy some tech into this weakness because of this, but there are 600 new companies that have come public in the last year, the majority of them in tech or biotech, and that oversupply makes it difficult for any of the newer stocks to bounce, so the older ones are already doing so. At lower levels, we'll have more ideas, but you need to start somewhere, and for now, that means the oils, the consumer staples, and the defense contractors. Ukraine, it should belong to Ukraine, but I don't make the rules. I like to say there's always a bull market somewhere, and I promise to try to find it just for you right here on Mad Money. I'm Jim Cramer. See you tomorrow. The news with Shepard Smith starts now.